Every day, billions of malicious files and URLs flood the internet, constantly evolving to evade detection. How do security teams keep up with this relentless threat? Today, we're diving deep into malware execution as a service with Greg Barnes and learning how Cisco Secure Malware Analytics provides critical insights on the latest malware threats. My name is Kyle Winters, and this is Security Unlocked. Greg, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So to begin, I was at Cisco Live recently and I saw a presentation there titled around malware execution as a service. So can we start just by kind of defining what is malware execution as a service and why is it so important today?
Sure. I mean, malware execution, the concept of the threat actors evading certain controls out there. There's always been, cops and robbers element to it that never ends, right? The threat actors spend more. They have new tooling, right? Machine learning, artificial intelligence, they're all of the great things that we talk about on our end, but being able to stop those threat actors, they have access to the same tooling. So we have to invest a lot in looking at their techniques and seeing how their techniques kind of change over time. So, secure malware analytics, something I definitely support. I support a lot of email as well and threat detection and response. So just to give you an example, malware as kind of a service, even this is a couple years old, we'd have threat actors sending through benign files and relatively small files. But the whole idea was to recreate a phishing URL that you would then click on, right? So, and that was evading URL controls for all of our products, not just email, but, anything that we would do, from a DNS filtering point of view or your web services. So again, there's a lot out there for the malwares and the threat actors that they're doing, and that we have to continually evolve to try and catch up.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the age of AI, I mean, their capabilities and how they can react and be proactive on the attacker side is just exponentially growing in terms of speed and efficiency. And having a tool like Secure Malware Analytics, how does that kind of help keep up with it and address this growing challenge?
I think the biggest value that secure malware analytics has is the load and the visibility that it can see. When I actually speak about load, on an average day, we do over 120 million malware samples a day. So that is a massive sampling. And that's after we do things that we would actually call our pre-classifiers, right? So there's static analysis that we're doing on these samples to know whether your PDF or your PowerPoint, right? Does it even have any active content where we're going to spin up, a sandbox and do our more heavy dynamic analysis that we could do. Obviously, if you have your security operations center, you can go in there, you could submit it via API, you could go into this dashboard, on the dashboard that I'm showing, you could interact with that malware, but it's going to give you a lot of visibility into the indicators that the threat actors are currently using. So if you're in your SOC, like I gave the example before, right? If you're having a lot of problems with URLs or something else that you specifically want to dig into, it's going to give you that support, and it's going to give you that support at scale.
So just really quick to kind of address two things that you just brought up. You mentioned static analysis and dynamic analysis. And I think for those who might not be familiar, what's the difference between those two and why are they both important? And the second question I have for you as well is you mentioned URLs as an example, but what other types of files or different types of things can secure malware analytics process?
Sure. So starting with the first point, which is static analysis versus dynamic analysis, right? So I think one of the things that the industry has continued to be challenged with, and it's been out there for quite a while, it would be ransomware, right? And being able to see those techniques that are actually involved with it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of encrypted traffic flows out there. We do have different telemetry where we're getting the file submissions from, like I said, whether that's, firewall or endpoint or email, or maybe an XDR integration. But getting back to static versus dynamic analysis, Static is really just kind of maybe the attributes about the file, right? What is the file type? Is there kind of active content in it? Is it just a photo or something like that? Even that actually can have its own malicious characteristics if it's a photo telling you to go do something bad, right? But that's generally not what we're concerned about within secure malware analytics. Once we can see that there's active content in there, right? Maybe it's redirecting you to, a credential harvesting site, or it's doing some sort of data exfiltration, right? That's when we can get in more into the dynamic analysis, right? We want to put this in a sandbox environment where malware can thrive, where the malware doesn't recognize that it's in a sandbox, but it can go ahead and start making those registry edits that it actually wants to make, can make any network connections that it wants to make, right? And we're going to see and get all of that telemetry off of that dynamic analysis once that file is executing to go ahead and get the information that we want out of it that is valuable to our researchers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of modern malware is very sophisticated and it's trying to evade detection. So it sounds like through that dynamic analysis and some of the capabilities that malware analytics has in place, it can catch those attempts to evade detection. Greg, I would love to see an example of secure malware analytics in action, maybe from initial submission all the way through analysis, all the way through to the end where now you have actionable threat intelligence.
Yeah, so this is what it first looks like. If you can see my screen, is Secure Malware Analytics when you log in. Like I said, we do over 120 million samples a day. Now, in this organization, this is my Cisco internal organization account, but you're going to see what the average analysis time is, right? 6 minutes, 35 seconds. Generally, keep that in mind if you're thinking of any automated workflows. If you want to come back and get information out of it, to go ahead and do that. Now, there's a few different ways that you can submit in Secure Malware Analytics. We could go ahead and we could actually just submit a file up into the dashboard. We could do it via an API. Kind of the standard way is via an integration from one of our other Cisco partners. Like I said, something like Firewall, right? But if I went in, now I can actually see, the recent samples that are running in my environment. I could do, look at the runtime video. Now, a lot of times, right, unless it's something that is, overtly malicious, you're going to log in on the video and you're going to wait for the malware to do things. So there are certain timers involved, right, that are common for evasions. And also that is going to directly indicate its level of maliciousness in and of itself. If you wanted to, you could go ahead as well. When you did the file upload, we do have what we call, a white glove service where, and I can go ahead and actually click one of these runtime videos where you're actually, see you could download the video itself. The white glove service, if you actually wanted to, you could log into this node on Secure Malware Analytics, one of the helper nodes, right, that is actually running your Windows environment in this case. Another thing that I'll call out here, when getting back to the concept of static analysis and those pre-classifiers where we're getting information about the file itself, that is also going to help to determine the environment that we're going to run for your code, right? So maybe it's in a certain language. We don't get necessarily into application specific things, right? It's pretty much what's already preloaded in the Windows environment and Office. Right. But we will give you, let's say it was something, again, particularly that was browser based, we'll run it in that environment for you that is kind of specific to you. If I get into kind of the indicators, if I got, to submit as well, right, here's where we would actually submit if I actually had a piece of malware. Cisco IT doesn't like me keeping pieces of malware on my laptop.
Sure.
But this is where you would upload your file, submit your URLs, right? And we'd all be off and running. Again, you could do an API as well.
So you can automate, essentially, you can integrate and automate this entire process using its APIs. Then you don't have to bring everything in through the graphical user interface.
That is correct. So you can do that API integration. And of course, like I said, we have a lot of product integrations. So here, this is showing me what's running in the Cisco infrastructure from Cisco IT and all of my coworkers, right? what's going on. And we're seeing the Windows VMs as well. I told you that, depending on, what we're getting out of that static pre-classifier, it's going to kind of lead us down a path to give us the best environment possible for us. And what that leads us to, right, is the reports that we can get out of this, right? So, on a specific sample, if I wanted to, I could get that sample specific. If I want to know what's going on in my environment at a high level, right, and we don't have that many malicious submissions, and you would hope not, right, in our environment currently, but we definitely still do have some submissions. We have our threat researchers who are working, right, to go ahead and analyze what's going on. I can actually see, the different submissions and network exit nodes. Secure Malware Analytics is a global environment. We have nodes all over the world. Getting into techniques, right? If I wanted to look specifically for my organization, I could drill down even into my samples if I wanted to go and do it from a timeline point of view. I could also see, again, kind of the threats that I was seeing recently. Currently, I'm aligned to the attack framework. The last time I logged in here, right, and we're getting a lot of, for today's samples, right, or actually this is in the last month, we have, indicators associated with, login pages detected that we know essentially that are actually malicious.
That was very cool, by the way. So it maps directly to the MITRE attack framework and aligns with the different TTPs that you would see inside of that framework. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. So if you wanted to be able to give an executive report, talking to your risk profile of the trends that you've seen lately, it is completely aligned to the MITRE framework.
Very cool.
So, just going back in here, right, if I wanted to, I could get more details from the execution, and it would tell me, again, for a specific sample, if we had indicators associated with it.
So once these indicators have been uncovered and they're in the know now, does Secure Malware Analytics then integrate with things like Cisco XDR and Splunk to get that information out to the right people in the SOC to mitigate those risks?
It does. So obviously, whether you're using XDR or Splunk, you could create workflows to set off either automations or alerts to the security operations centers. Now, we do have integrations into, our various different products as well. So again, whether we're talking about firewall, or we're talking about email, right, we're talking about SASE, you can set alerts to take remediation actions based off of that. But, we get a lot of intelligence, global intelligence. One of the powerful things about Secure Malware Analytics is it will update, all of the file hashes, all of our telemetry for Talos that goes into pretty much all of our Cisco services.
That's awesome. I love that, everything is kind of working together on the same mission here, which is great. How do folks get their hands on Secure Malware Analytics? Is it a standalone product? Is it part of a larger suite of products? How would our audience here be able to test this out?
The answer is both, right? But it is a standalone product. We obviously, a lot of our customers get it alongside other products that they may have already purchased, whether that's endpoints, again, a firewall. Depending on your level of subscription, you may have a Secure Malware Analytics license. You probably have to work with the help desk or the technical assistance center to provision you a read-only viewing of Secure Malware Analytics. But if you want to be able to interact with the file samples, if you want to be able to use the API, all right, if you want to have that white glove kind of experience where you're interacting with the malware, that's when you would need a standalone license for Secure Malware Analytics.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think people are very timid when it comes to messing around with malware. And I think providing a safe environment to detonate these different types of malicious softwares is very valuable. And it allows us to make sure that we're keeping our endpoints and devices as secure as possible. So this has been awesome. Is anything else that the audience might be interested in learning about when it comes to secure malware analytics?
I think the biggest thing is the continued innovation and how it works hand in hand with our threat researchers and Talos, and we continue to come out with new resources. We're continuing to look at integrating further with our Splunk partners. Obviously, Splunk is the big acquisition for Cisco within the last year. Splunk themselves has some tooling that we're working with as well, with the Splunk Attack Analyzer. But Secure Malware Analytics, definitely, it's a core part of our, what we do for Cisco Security from a malware point of view, and we're continuing to invest into it.
Awesome. And where's the best spot for folks to learn more about Secure Malware Analytics? Is it cisco.com or somewhere else?
I would say it is cisco.com. Of course, we do support all sorts of things, YouTube, whatever else that is out there, where we try and make a little bit of a presence, our partner communities, but cisco.com is probably going to be their best bet.
Awesome. Well, Greg, this has been really fun. I'm enjoying this a lot. I mean, I've done different talks on malware in the past, and having a tool that does static and dynamic analysis can be very valuable in understanding better how these things work and being able to stop them from ultimately going after the crown jewels that your organization may have. So I really appreciate you joining today and look forward to having you on the show again here soon.
Okay. I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, all.